डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन युनिव्हर्सिटी.
Namaskar students, welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University's Video Aids lecture session. I am Dr. Nikita Gadani, Assistant Professor in Department of English, School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. So today's our topic is Paper 2 Introduction to English Language and Structure, Unit 1 Evolution of Language, Definition, Meaning and Nature of Language. And components of our presentation today's are, that is objectives, then we have evolution of language, then we have a definition of language, then we have a meaning, and then we have a nature of language, then we have a questions and references and web resources. So moving ahead to the objectives, to explain evolution of language and discuss it, to understand the definition of language and outline the features characterizing it in detail, to examine the meaning of meaning and elaborate on the sum of the different kinds of meaning, to comprehend the nature and properties of language and discuss. So, talking about the evolution of language, before trying to know the evolution of language, the question arises in our mind that what is language? That is something which is used to convey message from one to another, something which is used to share our thoughts, emotions, ideas, information from one person to another person. That is what we call a language. Trying to know about the evolution of language, the definition of evolution says that evolution is a scientific theory that seeks to demonstrate how new species appear from their pre-existing form over a time in a variety of ways through the process of natural selections, genetic mutations or drift and hybridization. Language is the vehicle of human thought process which facilitates communications. Steven Pinker, in his book The Language Instinct, The New Science of Language and Mind, begins by laying traces on the language as an instinct to acquire an art. He explained that human beings belong to a species with a remarkable ability. We can shape events in each other's brain with exquisite precision due to their ability to use language. Human beings use language to communicate with each other. They share ideas using the ability to speak. It is through this language ability, consisting of its four major skills, that is listening, speaking, reading and writing, that we are able to bridge the gaps of time, space and acquaintanceship. Dr. Albert Mehrabin, author of Silent Message, conducted several studies of non-verbal communication. He found that 7% of any message is conveyed through words, 38% through the certain vocal elements and 55% through the non-verbal elements, that is facial expressions, gesture, posture, etc. Subtracting the 77% of actual vocal content leaves one that with the 93% of statistic. So here you can see that the elements of personal communication. So here it is divided in certain various percentages, like 7% that is for spoken words, 38% that is voice and tone, and 55% that is body language. Jeevan and Mele, in the book titled The Evolution of Human Language Out of Pre-Language, in which they argue that language evolution has been an intellectual often in linguistics, largely due to deep-set prejudice in its epistemology. This has helped create a rigid boundary between a biological and a cultural, the genetic and the learned, etc. However, research on biological evolution requires the study of fossils, which would not help us uncover anything how language originated from its spoken form. The fossils and the evidences collected by archaeologists would only help to shed light on the way written form of language evolved. Like moving ahead, that here we can, so here you can see that the human evolutions and the language evolutions. You can see the human evolutions from the chimpanzees to the ancient people to the modern people, like those who are using the technology. And you can see the evolution of language, that is they in the previous era they used to communicate with certain symbols that you can see over here, and then the particular form of language evolved, and that is what we known as a language. And then here also you can see that the evolution of written language. So firstly we have certain symbols, then we have this alphabets, that is ABCD in whatever language, that is it can be a regional, it can be a local language, it can be a mother tongue, it can be a national language, it can be international language. And then nowadays in a present technological era, that we communicate with the emojis, that it's nowadays it's very useful and it is used in social media, that is in Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter, that people used to share their emotions and their feelings, and they used to convey message only just through the emojis. So we can see that the evolution of language, that is from the symbol to alphabet to the particular language, and now that also we have this particular emojis. And here you can see that when in ancient time, that in this era, that what that is spoken out, that is a kind of a dialects or a symbols that they try to communicate. So here you can see that an ancient for example, that the chimpanzees and the sounds they used to create, that is kind of a grunt. Then the better after some development, they have a certain yoo-hoo, and then we have language, that is hello, and then that we have particular certain form of a language, and then it is completely developed language. So here you can see that the evolution of human species occurred over a period of time as the same in language. In ancient times, they used to have certain symbols, as we have just discussed in the previous slides, and now we have a particular language to communicate. So by moving ahead this, that we have consider from of historical perspective, the evolution of language seem to have occurred over a time period. Much of what we know as language today has its base in oral language use, especially sound. Then we have adequate research support available for evolution of language insofar as language used in writing is concerned. Linguistics have been able to establish how writing evolved as a linguist form. The movement is in development was from use of matchstick drawing to cave paintings to use of long leaves for writing to writing on a stone, etc. Right up to the point in time that Caxton invented the printing press. So now when we try to look at the definition of language, a language is a system of communication which consists of a set of sounds, symbols which are used by the people for a particular country or a region, or writing. According to Aristotle, blue symbol मतलब color આવે છે. Okay, fine, done, thank you. According to Aristotle, the term speech metonymically to imply that language is a speech, what he defined it as the representation of the experience of the mind. Such an assumption would lead us to following set of propositions, that is, speech is a representation it is a subject of this representation is an experience. This experience is the product of the human mind. To represent something, it is to depict, describe or declare to be, to state facts, or better still to symbolize. Now another critics who define language is Rubin defines language as a system of symbols based on pure or arbitrary convention, extendable and modifiable according to the changing needs and condition of the speakers. He also defined language, it is a symbol system that is a pure or arbitrary convention. Language is extremely extendable and modifiable, and the changing needs of the speakers govern extensions and modifications, and it is completely need based. So language is a need based social product, a creation of the human mind, since it is not individual in its origin and orientation. It draws its substance from social convention. So another critic, Chomsky, defined language is that he notes that when we study human language, we are approaching what some might call human essence, the unique qualities of mind that are, as far as we know, unique to man. His argument is that the study of human language leads us to what he calls the human essence, or the distinctive qualities of mind. Mind is the essence that enables human beings to feel, to emote, and thus it makes it possible for them to respond to stimuli such as sensation, perceptions, dispositions, mood, physical and intellectual activities, and that their cognition strengthens. So we establish logical relations through deductive or inductive procedures, drawing suitable inference. This is what finally informed the process involved in understanding. All of this is a part of what essentially constitute the initial stage in the formation and comprehension of concepts. Understanding is the discovery of meaning, which is evident in language use shaped by purpose. Anything that is goal oriented is purposeful. Intention and effort define our purpose, and so does the choices. So now talking to the meaning of the language, that is normally it is a sound, grammar and meaning that are basic components of any language. Lich, in his book Semantics, the Study of Meaning, discusses 7 types of meaning, that is conceptual meaning, connotative meaning, social and affective meaning, then we have a reflected meaning, collocative meaning and thematic meaning. So moving ahead with the conceptual meaning. So conceptual, that is something related to the concept. It is something having to do with the mind or with the mental concepts or philosophical and imaginary ideas. It is related to, based on the mental concepts. We also call it denotative or cognitive meaning, semantics. It is one of the essential features of language in terms of communication. For example, the word cat, that is CAT, when you think the word, images, thoughts, memories becomes activated to provide you with the concept. So the cat is something that is an animal that we use to see. So behind the 3 later words, that is a CAT, hence this memories and thoughts are concepts under which you understand the meaning of the word. Then we have connotative meaning. So the connotative meaning, that is a word includes that feelings and ideas that people may connect with the word. So here we have an example, that is a group, a clique and a club. So you can see that these three are kind of a synonyms, and that may convey a kind of a similar meaning, but we cannot use this three words at the same time. That let's observe that the connotations are apt to vary from age to age and from society to society. So when you look up the word in a dictionary, you will find a literal meaning of a particular word, or else you can get the meaning, and that is basic definitions of the word. However, many words, especially nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, also have an emotional side. Though not part of the official dictionary, the definition, the emotions and the associations are connected to a word, and that are known as a connotative meaning. So depending on how a word has been used over a time, it may have a positive, it may have a negative, or it may have a neutral meaning. For example, as we have just discussed, that the examples of group, clique and club are the three have basically the same denotative meaning. A set of more than one person, each of these words has a different connotative meaning. However, the word group has a neutral connotations because it is simply describes a number of people. It does not inspire either positive or negative feeling. And while the another word that also means a group of people, but it carries a negative connotation. This is because the word is typically used in a circumstances where the group is known for excluding others. This word should be used carefully. If you want to be thought of a welcoming group, the negative connotations of this word will turn people off. And then we have another word, that is club. It also refers to a group of people, but this word has a more positive connotations because a club is collection of people that voluntarily come together for a shared passion or purpose. Then we have social and affective meaning. So social meaning is what our language has to convey about our social context. Language varies from region to region, and which is how we have dialects, like for example that we have Charotari dialects, we have a Kathiawadi dialects, we have a Surti dialects within the Gujarat, and there are different styles to use these dialects. And then we have affective meaning. So the meaning has to do with the emotions, and where one word would find a marked change in the intonation pattern. For example, that don't tell me this, I cannot do that, or why don't you take the break, or even give me a break. So here you can see that how the sentence affect this meaning. So then moving ahead, we have a reflected meaning. Reflected meaning is born out of our reactions to events like bhajans, qawwalis, ghazal, etc. This is a range of emotions that this evoke. The meaning we derive from the attending such events depends on the emotions they evoke in us. Then we have associative meaning. Is an expression has to do with the individual mental understanding of the speakers. It is a set of objects, a stimuli, a chain of events which shall be the formula of what particular emotions, such that when the external facts which must terminate in sensory experience are given, the emotion is immediately evoked. The law of association is at work in this example. So for example, when we see the example of pig, then some people hear that the word pig they think is a particularly dirty or unhygienic animal. So these associations are largely mistaken. at least in comparison with other farm animals, although their association with various cultural traditions and related emotional responses are real enough. So, we would probably not include these properties in connotations of the word, but the associative meaning of a word often has a very powerful communicate. Then we have thematic meaning. So, thematic meaning is what is communicated by the way in which a speaker or a writer organizes the message in terms of ordering, focus, and emphasizes, as it happens when we transform a sentence in active voice or to a passive voice. For example, he was arrested last night becomes the police arrested him last night. So, structurally speaking, the two sentences differ in order of words, focus and emphasizes, but the content remained the same. Why police? Because that is the only agency that has the right to arrest a person or a violations of a law as a matter of principles. So, now moving ahead, we have the nature of language. So, nature is a reference to the inherent characters, properties or attribute of something by means of which we can identify and categorize it, especially its structure, composition and characters. We have taken a close look at the language, its evolution and definition. So, now moving ahead to see the nature of language, the first that is a language is artificial. Why it is artificial? Because language is created by people. It does not exist in isolation or outside the mind of people. It is created by human as they need it. Every symbol is attached to a particular thought and thing. For example, the word nice has changed its meaning over a period of time. Irrespective of the etymology, more important is the fact that we select a word for use in a particular way from the limitless choices available. Human attach meaning to the words as they need to modify this meaning according to changing needs. This is way we say language is artificial. Then we have another nature of language, that is language is restricted. So, when we think and translate our thoughts into language, some meaning is lost in the process. No word or symbol transmits exact reality, and that is the one reason that sometimes you cannot find proper word to express your feelings. This is because language is restricted. To overcome this limiting quality of language, people use the words with non-verbal language to explain things in a better way. Language is only a sketch of apparent and obvious. While communicating, we must keep two things in our mind. First, we need to use language as accurately as possible. While when we required, we should corroborate it with the available alternatives such as non-verbal cues, graphic elements and audio-visual recording. So, now moving ahead with the another characteristic of language, that language is abstract. Why it is abstract? Because we say language is it represents generalized ideas of the things or thoughts. The idea which the word represent is different every time. For example, the word dress can represent anything. It can represent sari or it can represent salwar suit as well. Then we have a language is arbitrary. Why it is arbitrary? So, there is no direct relationship between a word and the idea or object it represents. People speaking a particular language accept the fact that certain symbols or sound will represent a particular thing. For example, the word table that could have a 4 leg and that is accepted that a piece of furniture with the 4 legs and wooden plank used for keeping the things will be called as a table. Sometimes this arbitrary aspect of language causes problem when a word undergoes a change that may not be universally accepted. It might not be understood clearly as well. So, another characteristic of language, that is language is creative. So, language is indeed a very creative, and you can marvel at its ability to generate so many words every day. Every year many words are added to the dictionary, and these words can be added by different processes. For example, borrowing, to take something, that words from the language such as alcohol from the Arabic and was from the Dutch. Then we have, for example, that is netiquette, that is net plus etiquette, and education, edutainment, that is education and entertainment. So, you can see the creativeness of the language. So, then another we have a language is repetitive. So, whatever language you use, it has the capacity for the repetition. This may either improve or impede effective communication. Look closely for this example, as in the simple sentence that a couple of girls are riding their bicycles. So, how many signals in it indicates that the process of more than one person, that the first two are the plural nouns, girls and bicycles, the third is the agreement of the verbs, are riding, and the fourth and the fifth are the couple, and we can accept that the things in this instance repetition of information makes the meaning clear, and on the other hand excessive and unnecessary repetition or cut. In this we can say that the repetitions may lead to the verbosity without contributing to the meaning. Then we have another, that is language is recursive. Recursiveness is the characteristic of language which enables you to generate any number of sentences using the same basic grammatical templates and pattern. It also allows you to express ideas, thoughts or feelings using the same vocabulary. Recursiveness implies that there is no limit to the potential length of a sentence. For example, this man who is wearing a suit which he borrowed from me to wear to his interview, which was on Wednesday, which was the day it was raining. So, if you see that your imaginations, you can see that this sentence can continue to any length if you keep on adding and qualifying the clauses for every noun. This is because the recursive quality of language here enables you to take the relative clause pattern. So, now moving ahead, the conclusion that to sum up this entire unit is about the evolution and nature of language, including the definition and language and meaning of language and the nature of language. So, here you have a questions. So, for example, the write short notes on the following: a definition of evolution. So, here you can write that, as we have discussed earlier, you can write the definition about the language and evolution about the language. Then we have defined language. Then there is a statement, that comment on the statement, language is not only used for communication but also for the self realization. So, how? Why it is also that we have discussed and earlier, so you can mention about this. Then we often use the term speech as a substitute for language. Why do you think this happens? So, sometimes we use that we use the language and we use speech to mention the same things, but it is not the same thing. So why it is not the same thing, that you need to provide the answer over here. And then we have a references. So for further reading, you can use these references and you can expand your knowledge on the evolution of language and the meaning of language. Thank you, and I hope that you have understood the topic. See you soon in next session. Thank you.